Text ya, won't settle for less. Bet ya that you won't forget. Text us, don't call our phone. Help us.
Hey fam, and thanks for joining us on Conversations with G. I'm your host G, and we are joined today by one of our guests as we talk about growing pains. Yes, growing pains. So I'm talking to a young adult. If y'all followed me, the last episode we talked about planting seeds, where I spoke with a couple of mothers, where we talked about like how it's been, as far as like we're planting those seeds of encouragement and good seeds as well as the negative ones as our children and the younger generations, continue to grow up, and what are they bringing along the way with them as they go into this adulthood. So we are joined today by a guest, and I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, family. My name's Ra. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I know, sometimes we get into this space and it can be a little nervous. So I get that, but we're just going to take it, like I said, like the name of the show, it is Conversations with G. So it really is just a conversation that we're going to have about the topic of growing pains. And I know you heard me mention, what we're going to be discussing in this space. So if you want to talk a little bit about yourself, Ra, your age, where you are in life, and everything like that before we dive in.
So my name's Mariah. I'm 23 years old. I work for the government right now, so I'm at a good place in my life. I just take every day at a time, prioritize fitness, career, spiritual growth. And yeah, I'm just a very simple girl. Go through things and taking one day at a time and learning the hard way to again just roll with the punches.
Gotcha. So you said, I love the way that you said the spiritual growth. You dropped that in there. So 23, government worker, you're just like, I'm taking it one day at a time, and everything like that. And you're rolling with the punches. And I like that you said that as well, because as we know, life will throw you some punches. Left punch, right uppercut to the gut, left and right or what have you. And the fact that to hear you say that that you brought in God, that you brought in the spiritualness of it, and I'm taking that along with your journey, and that you continue to roll with the punches. I'm loving to hear that. I know I asked you to join me in the space because you're a young adult, and we want to talk about, what you've learned from your parents, and others, in that space, whether it be your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, whatever, people that you looked up to, whether it be teachers, pastors, what have you, along the way to help you get to the space where you said you were feeling good. You're going on with life right now,
Yeah. Anyone that has known me has known that all my life I have struggled with mental health. So for me, I talked a little bit about this before. For me, my mental health really deteriorated at home. I'm at a very young age. I love both of my parents to death, but as any person, they had a lot of flaws. And at one point in my life, that had overshadowed, the good times.
Right.
And, I think that was the moment where the bad seeds had occurred. A lot of people have to realize, and I had to realize too, though, at one point in my life, to not take it personal. Not saying that, and I say this all the time, not saying that we're not human. It's very inhumane to think that we're never going to have emotion, but you have to stop and realize and look at how their parents raised them and what their bad seeds are. So, I bump heads with both of my parents, but my dad in particular, because I'm more close with their side, they were way more active in my life than my mother's side. So I was around them a lot more.
Right.
And that side, my dad's side is more so, yeah, they're peaceful, but they're very black and white. It's either peaceful or it's chaos. And then I have my mom's side where they're just, everything is so confrontational. Everything is like, everything has to be a battle. So I had these two sides to me where I had bad seeds just going all over the place at a very, very young age, being exposed to a lot of things. And I don't think they have realized how much of those bad seeds were implemented in me. And me personally, I didn't know either. Like, I was getting into fights in school. At one point, I really wasn't prioritizing my education. Like, I just kind of went to school, was a social butterfly, didn't really care about that. And I was just so angry.
So you said you didn't really realize that at that young age when it happened. So that's something that you just recently realized? Like, when did you realize it? Still when you were like as a teenager? Was it just, you're 23 now, so was it just when you turned into your 20s? And what was that like for you? Like, what was that moment for you when you realized, like, wait a minute, I got this negative seeds in me that I'm doing exactly what, I saw around me, or what they, did around me, or what have you?
Yeah. I would say it hasn't been about a year yet. It's been about, let's say, 5, 6 months.
Oh, wow. Really recent. Okay.
Yeah, very recent.
Gotcha.
What had happened was that I was with someone, and yes, I know I'm young, guys, but young people fall in love too.
We know that. Yeah, I know that. I've talked about that myself. So yes, we understand.
But
understand people.
I was with someone for 3 years, and
wow.
I dearly loved him, but the relationship was very, very, very toxic. I've seen both sides of my family. So I'm a firm believer that even though people do things, you have a choice to walk away. You don't have to engage. That's true. I didn't know that at the time, though. I stayed with someone for 3 years, continued to be cheated on, lied to.
Oh, wow.
And I've seen the emotional side of my mom's side that's just like in your face, we're gonna argue, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We just gonna go head for it, and that's it. And then I also see my dad's side where, my emotions were also kind of like reserved. Like, it might have took me a while to say something, or I might have not have said something because my mom's side bad seeds made me feel like, because at the time I didn't have any emotional intelligence. I didn't, know how to articulate myself in that emotional state to have a mature conversation with someone. And in my environment didn't make it any better either, being with him. But it just was such an imbalance in my personality, such an imbalance in my mental health. And I was already struggling with mental health for years. I don't think my family knew, because that wasn't something I really shared with them. Because I feel like mental health is looked down upon a lot. Like, a lot of people just think like, oh, she's just being dramatic, and that's her father. and that's her mother. Because again, it's not one-sided. Both
Right.
did their part.
Yeah.
That, you know, oh, you know, it's okay, she'll get over it. But, you know, certain things, not even that was directly towards me, just seeing two people just go head on. I guess I was always in a flight or fight type of mindset.
Okay. Yeah.
That when I get in an emotional state, it was always like heightened. Like even like
Right.
even the most simplest things in life, like I would talk to someone and ask them like, hey, would you would have reacted this way? Just out of curiosity,
Right.
because anybody that knows me, I don't really care. But I will ask for your opinion, you know, how I handle this, how I handle it. And everybody will always be like, well, you know, I don't think I would have handled it that way, or but again, I had two very strong personalities on both sides of the family, and it made me a very black and white person. There was no gray areas. So every moment was just so intensified for my mental health. But I also felt like that could have been hard on him as well. So
when you say him, are you talking about the relationship that you had with the guy for 3 years? Okay. All right.
Yeah. And when he had left, like I'm talking about just left, like nothing being said, nothing. It forced me to sit with myself.
Okay.
And it forced me to realize that you can't seek love from anyone else. You can only seek love from God.
Right.
And at that period, I had built a relationship with God. I had built a relationship with myself.
Yeah.
I had built a relationship with my physical health. So none of that would have been possible though if God didn't remove people, bad habits, all the things that were kind of pushing me away from my faith. To have to allow me to have a clear mind.
Right.
You know, he removed that, and I was stuck. It wasn't just the guy; it was other things in life too that was going on, and I was just kind of there sitting like, what now?
So when you got to that point when you were sitting there, the what now? Did it like did your mindset already like open up and say, okay, now's my time to reconnect with God. Now's my time, God. I need to wait on you. Or were you somewhat battling to be like, oh no, I got to go out there and try to do something? You know, I don't know, this feels weird. This isn't me, because of everything that you have gone through, that you have witnessed, everything that you've carried along the way, you know. How was that for you?
When it first happened, I tried to surround myself with a lot of people. I tried to go out a lot. I tried to talk to my friends a lot more than usual.
Right.
Because I didn't want to sit with myself. Because if I allowed myself to sit with myself, I had to be forced to be in tune with my emotions.
Yeah.
And people don't realize when you truly do love someone, you go through withdrawal.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You really go through an actual withdrawal process. Like it's painful. You might be fine. I've never actually went through a physical withdrawal, but as far as the emotional standpoint, from my knowledge of how it's similar to a physical, some days might be peaches and cream, and then one day you just crying in the car, listen to some Marvin Gaye or something,
right? Because you get that memory comes flooding back. It's like, okay, and you hit it on the head. That emotional side, like the physical withdrawal is something in its own self, but that emotional sense, Like that emotion that you have when you have that deep connection, when you have that love for, and you sat there and mapped out your life with this person, in the future, what have you, no matter wherever, not it's the beginning stages or what have you, but you've mapped out, your life, whether it be your short-term life or the long-term life with this person, and to have that suddenly leave, it is this kind of like it's almost as if like it's being torn from you. And so it's all, you have this moment of being like, what do I do now? And the emotions that come with that. And you hit it on the head. Like, it is difficult. I talked about this in another episode too. It is difficult to sit there with yourself and have a self-reflection with yourself, to really analyze your life, the choices, the circumstances, everything that's been going on so far at that point in your life. And that's a hard thing to do. Like so and then you compound that with the heartache, the emotions that come with that breakup, or the loss of someone, if it was someone that had passed, and then getting to that moment where you look yourself in the mirror, because it is a very emotional state. I talked about that time for me, my time. It was like I was snot crying. I did that whole, when you cry so much, that snot cry. I did a snot cry, and it was for hours. So and it was difficult, but it was a very freeing moment. But it was difficult, right? And I felt like it needed to get done. And then after that, I was like, okay. And it hasn't been peaches and creams, like just all blue skies and what have you, since then. But I feel a lot better and more confident as I maneuver through life. So yes, I hear you on that. You talked about you went out, you were like, okay, I want to keep busy because you don't want to spend time with yourself. Did you get to that state though, where you did have to eventually have that one-on-one with self?
Yeah, so one of my friends that I've known since elementary school, we were out to eat one day.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just like, is everything okay? And I was just like, yeah, everything's cool. And that's where that dad side came out, just kind of like, yeah, whatever. I'm just not deal with it. Let's act like nothing ever happened. And she was like, no, not everything is okay. What's going on? Because I didn't tell nobody.
Right.
I didn't, if someone didn't ask about him, I didn't say nothing.
Okay.
And, when she asked about him, I just started brawling, like and, at that moment, I was fine. I was just kind of like, well, I have friends, I have people in my life, so be it, whatever, you left, cool. But when I really had the emotions, come out, that's when the journey has started. Like, I've never felt that kind of heartache before. And, I'm young. So, I don't have a lot of, heartbreak experience. So it was so intense for me. Because I feel like too, growing up, that I have a lot of trust issues. I have a lot of abandonment issues, as far as like, my parents have never abandoned me, but as far as like emotional abandonment, like feeling like I don't have a emotional support system around me. And then being in that environment for 3 years straight. When did I ever really have time in my life to be happy? So on top of me already having my issues with myself, I got this person coming in and making such a huge impact on my mental health as well. Like, one day I was just crying like all day long. And I looked myself in the mirror and I said, well, what are you doing?
Right.
And I decided to pick up my Bible.
There you go.
And I just started reading.
Right.
And I can't think of the particular verse that it was, But the verse was just speaking on how, we seek God for our troubles, our worries, our fears. And, when you sit there and try to take that on yourself, or in some cases with me, don't even try to take it on yourself, just kind of, try to throw it in the trash, that you are taking God out of that equation.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So,
Wow. Now, you had mentioned you were feeling some, earlier you mentioned, you were angry. I heard you just a little bit ago talk about abandonment issues, and not like physical abandonment, but like emotional abandonment issues. Was that something that you realized was this the part of that was what you realized the 5-6 months ago that you just talked about, or did you realize that it had been at an earlier state?
I realized that at an early stage. I've had experience with family members before where my emotions were definitely not taken into consideration, because I think a lot of people from both sides of the family didn't understand the environment that was at home. And like I said, in no way, shape, or form was it any physical or anything like that.
Right.
But I think that we look down on mental
Our
mental
community?
mental
Mental
health so
wellness. Oh
bad.
yeah. Our
Yeah.
community, and I speak on our community, there is such a stigma around mental health. And you touched on it a little earlier where you mentioned, people will sit there and think that, oh, it's just that'll pass. They just need to get over it, or what have you. Oh, what's wrong with them now? There's this stigma like we have to always be strong. And I think I believe this came from like hundreds and hundreds of years of where we had to be strong, because when our ancestors were brought over and, they were enslaved, they got that, crack on the back, because you got to be strong. There is no take a moment to cry, sob. If you see your fellow man, your husband, your wife, your sister, your children, or whatever being ripped from you, you couldn't cry. You had to keep moving forward. Because the master needed X, Y, and Z. These people needed to be, whatever. And it was kind of like, okay, let's just throw that to the side. And we just have to bury it down deep here and just keep on walking. We almost wore it like a badge of honor. Oh no, I'm good. I'm strong. I got this. And not showing any type of weakness for fear of getting that crack back. And well, at least that's what and I could be wrong, but that's what I believe as far as for me, like I think that stems from those times compounded with other things that that our community has dealt with over the years, because it's rooted in something, right? That stigma is rooted in something. But I'm glad that you realized that and didn't just go with the flow of, oh, I'm fine. Try to, but I'm fine, and just act like nothing was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad that you sat there and realized that your mental health is worth something, and it does feed into everything else in your life.
Growing up, I started seeing a lot of more things from my mom's side. Now my dad's side, they're just kind of like take the emotion and roll with it and it's okay. But my mom's side, they're very, very, very confrontational. Very confrontational. Some of them, are trying to come from a loving place of emotion, but most of them are not. So I registered being passionate about your feelings as, being a good thing. But it's really not. It's a time and place for everything. Like I should be able to say something to someone and them be receptive to what I'm saying. I shouldn't have to kick, scream, yell,
Right.
do all these things for the message to be heard, and it's still not even received. Because I don't know about anyone else, but a lot of people, they're not going to listen to you if, like, they're really not going to try to understand how you feel if
Right.
you're in that
That
fight or
heightened kind
flight
of state, yeah.
mode. Yeah, like you're just headstrong. You're just like,
Right.
I'm gonna break you down because you made me feel this way.
Right.
And it was situations that was going on around that time as well. When I was with the guy, and right before he had left. And I had seen, their actions, and I'm just kind of like, that's so weird. Like, why would you act like that? And then, like I said, though, when I was younger, I thought it was normal for people to either be real angry and yell, or, just not say anything and just kind of brush it off. So that's why I go back to I was very black and white. I didn't understand what it meant to have a very healthy, um, you know, civilized conversation with someone. Like, I didn't know what it was, but I also didn't know, like, if something didn't really bother me that bad, you still say something, but it's basically just the way you say things.
You hit the nail on the head. I was just going to say that we talked about that a little bit in when I spoke in under planting seeds before we got to this episode, and we had to realize the talking at versus talking to, realizing that the people, the youngsters, our children that we encounter, that we interact, that we're trying to help guide, that they also have feelings, and if we want them to, it's just everybody. When everybody wants to be heard, everyone has feelings, and so it's kind of like putting the shoe on the other foot type of thing going on there, and that was something that honestly I had to learn later down in life. I talked about being a little bit more rough around the edges when it came to helping to assist with my nieces and nephews, especially the older ones, and then stepping in and bringing like that, trying to bring that firmness and what have you. And I was very brusque with it. There wasn't that softer side of that I am now when I approach things. I mean, this has been going on for a while now, but back then it was a different type of thing. But then realizing that, and also hearing from the guests at the time, Kelly and Latoya, talk about that, like how we have to do that moving forward as parents. Like, we have to realize and own up to when we are wrong. Own up to when we as adults make a mistake. When we see our child going out there and we see them maybe doing something or reacting or acting or saying something that we once did or said or what have you, and was what we didn't want for our child to say or do or react or what have you, owning up to our part in planting that negative seed, and then trying to figure out a way to reverse that, try to figure out a way to plant some positive ones, help our children kind of deter away from that. So you now have you have this changed mindset. You're now moving in the right direction. You were awakened, and now have this changed mindset. Have your parents realized that? Have they made note of it? Have they talked about some of that? When you realized that there was this negative seeds that were in there, did you have a conversation with your parents about that, or have they even realized that they did that?
I had a conversation with both of them, but as of, recently, I had a conversation with my mother. And, it was hard for her to hear it. Because I feel like a lot of parents think just because, they weren't beating on you or, they put a roof over your head, clothes on your back, that, you know, what you say to other people too, and what type of environments I am in as well growing up is a huge factor. So if I'm in an environment and you and this person going back and forth, and then 2 minutes later you just acting like nothing ever happened, it's no resolution to it or anything, that becomes normalized. Just like with my father's side, I think I think with my father, it had to take him some time to sit with himself and realize that feeling emotion is okay.
Yeah.
Like I feel as though parents, they don't stop to take the time and say, why is my child doing this? They only think about, I raised my child do this, and I told my child do that, and my child know daggone well they shouldn't be doing that. So I'm
They
gonna jack
know
them
better.
up.
They know better.
They
I've said
always
that plenty
have
of
the,
times. They know better than that.
hey, you can't try to install, okay, make sure you're respectful and make sure you do this and make sure you do that, but you're not even being respectful to your support system. You're not even being respectful to yourself. So you're not showing any kind of, you're not showing the kind of you're not showing what you're supposed to be showing. And I salute a lot of parents. I don't have a child in mind, but I feel like it is hard to be a parent because as I had got older and again had to sit with myself and realize, okay, you're doing things that you think should be normalized because this happened, but you actually should not do that. So you need to do this. A lot of people that are parents, they have those bad seeds in them and they don't even realize that it has already rooted into the soil and it has already blossomed. And you know, like they only think about the discipline. You have to think about the self-love for yourself. You have to think about how you talk to other people in those kind of environments, not just your child. You have to think about how you discipline them. Now, am I sitting here saying that we you not supposed to get jacked up at all? I'm sorry, y'all, but I think everybody need a good little jacking up. I ain't gonna act like, every single action was just because mommy and daddy done did something. And I think that's what I had to realize too, since I had just said that. It was a lot of points in my life that made me be like, okay, like we gotta do better moving forward. But that was another thing that I was thinking to myself, like, okay, I get that mommy and daddy did this, but am I going to allow that to define me? I can't allow those bad seeds to define me. And this is why when I talk to people, I tell them the importance of spiritual growth because the Bible is a blueprint of life.
Yes.
It's so many situations in the Bible, if you really take the time to read it, that will equip you for situations in life. So if you don't have that spiritual connection with God, you're just speaking with your flesh. And that could mean in the sense of, I did something, you're trying to discipline me to this extreme because you're afraid of, this happening. And, you're just going to go to the max instead of giving it over to God. God, allow me to have guidance on handling this situation, things that we're supposed to talk to God in that format.
Oh yeah.
We're supposed to say, thank you for waking me up. God, God equipped me to take on the day. God, please give me guidance to walk like you in grace. So if you don't have that real personal connection, your heart is not going to not going to be there. Your mind is going to take forth.
Right.
And when you really think about your heart, you'll think in certain situations like, okay, let me not argue with this person, especially since my daughter is here. But not even if my daughter was here, why am I arguing with this person? Like, let me pray for them instead.
Right.
So that's a big part of it.
Yeah. I still go back to that, the fact that I love that you bring in the fact that it is that spiritual. You talked about spiritual growth, and the fact that it is that relationship building with God, our Father above. And taking that moment as we're going through life, having conversations or doing things, to talk to him. It's like how you and I are talking right now, like how when you're just talking to anybody, you pick up the phone or what have you, just talk to him. Although he knows everything that's going on, talk to him.
Right.
He knows specifics, and you yourself won't even understand until you actually have those conversations, right? With God. So yeah, you talked about the negative stuff. Now I want to talk about the positive stuff. What are some of the positive seeds and that you have gotten and seen and been planted with, from your parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, whoever were around you, to guide you along the way? What were those?
I would say introducing me to God, first off, because, I didn't build a relationship with God because my parents told me that. Once you get to your teenage years, then you start thinking about, what you want to believe in, what you want to do and stuff. You have your own personal choice. So I thank them for introducing me to that.
Yeah.
Even though it might have not been the best form of communication, I'm glad I still seen a taste of two different worlds. A lot of people, everyone is completely different, but a lot of people attract to what they're similar to. And at least as far as me, when I see certain family groups, they're kind of similar a little bit. So for me, I appreciate being in two completely different environments because it taught me that you do need to have a gray area. It's not a black and white type of life. And like I said, even though communication wasn't always key, they never raised me to be a disrespectful person. So that was something that I really appreciate because it's a lot of malicious, evil people out in this world. It's not a lot of kind people at all. When I go to the store, I tell the people that bag my stuff up, have a great day. If I see someone that's kind of having like a bad day, I'll crack a joke with them. I say hello to everyone. And a lot of people can't sit in a room and just tell everyone have a great day or just ask someone are they okay. So, again, outside of communication, they have both of them have these huge big personalities where they're so kind. Like they have both of them have these pure sunshine, bubbly hearts. And it made me into a little sunshine goofy ball with slightly rough edges. Slightly rough edges. It's not the perfect circle. But it showed me balance with everything. Like I'm headstrong. I'm not going to allow anyone to walk over me. I'm also not, malicious or, have evil intents. I'm kind. And I think that's my parents. Because like I said, they could come in a grocery store and just randomly talk to someone and, make someone day by talking to someone or just pray for someone, instead of judging them.
Right.
I think in those aspects, I get it from them.
That's good. Those are
Yeah.
really good attributes to have from your folks. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
As you tap into that as you're, growing up, you're adulting now, you've got you said you're a government worker, so you're in the government agencies out there, what have you, and sometimes it's some rough stuff. When you pick up that phone call and try to get some information from our government agencies, no matter which one it is, there's some rough stuff. And to deal with people as well, that's some rough stuff. So having that good balance that you talked about just now in that gray area as well, and also not being malicious, like really being intentional with your communication with individuals,
Yeah.
like that is one thing I know is a major, is something major that all of us need as we're maneuvering through life. So I'm glad that to hear that you picked up on that, you have that, and you're utilizing that, right? And that'll continue as you continue on in the government space or what have you. Now, I don't know if you want to continue like government, the agency that you're at is going to be where you are forever, but nonetheless, like to have that is going to, again, like catapult you in life. So that is one thing
Right.
I would say is a major key piece to have when you are adulting.
Right.
When you are adulting. So have there been any like things that come up as you're maneuvering through life as an adult that you have to like dig back into the resources of your mind, back into your tool bag and be like, you know what, I got this or I got that from, whether it be good or bad, to help you navigate through those moments?
Yeah. Humbleness,
Mm,
patience.
yes.
Um, I had to learn growing up that you can't be angry with the world because of what something had happened years ago.
Mm,
Because you're going to find yourself in situations where not that person isn't going to exactly understand where you're coming from.
right, right, right.
And when you sit there and try to seek emotional validation,
Mm-hmm.
emotional validation from someone else instead of humbling yourself
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that not everybody gonna get where you coming from.
Right,
uh,
right,
you're gonna maneuver life a lot better. Now I'm not saying um and that's a little bit of my mom's side coming in. We're not letting nobody walk over us.
right, right.
We're not about to sit here and just be like, yeah, whatever. That has never been my personality.
Mm-hmm.
Even with God by my side, that
Right.
has never been my personality whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
But I did have to learn that it's a way how you fight those battles.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I pray to God for a lot of things. I pray to God for patience,
Right.
and God put me in environments where I had to be patient.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Look at that. Right.
So I was in a situation where I could have just said, nah, forget it.
Right.
And honestly, the situation probably would have been bad for me. But I decided to take one of those seeds that I
Yeah.
had and
Yeah.
say, okay, I'm not going to let anyone walk over me, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
also going to understand the bad seed I have and
Mm-hmm.
understand that you're going to have to take some time to be in tune with your emotions, really understand how you want to go about it instead of being flesh emotional driven
Right.
and giving over to God.
Right.
And that was another moment where I was sitting at the desk and like I said, I read my Bible while I was taking calls. I have a Bible app and people could talk.
Right.
And in between calls, I had the Bible app and one of the verses that really reached out to me is actually right here. Is
Mm-hmm.
Proverbs chapter 18, verse 21.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not going to quote it because I didn't quote it. I just reinterpret what the message was from that scripture that, you ask God for wisdom
Mm-hmm.
because when you again, let that flesh take over. Your lips, your tongue will move, and it
Right.
will get you in
Right.
situations
Right.
you don't want to be in. So
Right.
I took a good seed because I do feel like it's a lot of benefits of not allowing people to take advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
But I also had to learn too that it is okay as well for my dad's side to sit back and, just think, is this something I should go about this way about?
Right.
Not forget about it, but maybe I should just sit. And I took both of those.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And when you do that also with that verse, what I interpret from is that you're not wasting your energy,
Yeah.
because again, you're allowing yourself to give it over to God.
Mm-hmm.
Because let me tell you something, I done said this before. If I would have took over the situation definitely would have had not went how I wanted it to go. So
Yeah.
it was just when I listened to that verse, it just hit my heart so much that I started tearing up,
Mm.
because it was like I see myself in so many situations where
Right.
I just picked up the Bible and a verse came to me.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
God talking to you.
I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, that's God
So
talking to you. Yeah, he does that all day long. All we got to do is just
mhm,
listen, read, hear, be aware, have that
right.
to know that it's him, coming at you in that way. Yeah.
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 So
No,
it was
I like that. What you say as far as like sit before you respond. My husband and I, we were earlier watching a sermon, and it was timing is everything. And that is oh so true. Timing is everything. And being reminded that just because something's going on right here, right now, you don't need to react just like that.
right.
Oftentimes, when you're reacting or making a rash decision to react or whatever it is that's going on, to say something or what have you, 9 times out of 10, that is nothing but flesh, and the outcome is not gonna be what you want it to be or what it should be, right? And so just hearing that again from today's sermon, hearing you talk about sitting and waiting for a minute off of Proverbs 18:20, I'm like, that's God talking to us. We gotta allow, we can't sit there and talk or do something while God's trying to talk to us. We need,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like we can't talk while he's talking, so to actually hear from him, to have that conversation with him, you have to allow him to talk to you, whether it's a voice that you hear, whether it's a word, the word that's being, that you're reading at the moment, or is being preached to you at the time, or what have you, or a feeling that you have. So yeah, but I'm glad that I'm happy that you brought that up, because I was quickly reminded about that service that we were watching earlier today about timing. So yeah.
Yeah, people don't understand that the devil tries to attack your mind.
Oh yeah.
And that's why you have to put God on the forefront,
Oh yeah.
because he comes to your heart.
Right.
Unfortunately, our flesh, you know, it can be compromised very, very easily.
Oh yeah.
And it could
Oh yeah.
take over very easily.
Oh yeah.
So as human beings, we cannot handle on that warfare.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they say it's spiritual warfare with your flesh,
Right.
because your heart is not pure. You're not
Mm-hmm.
actually taking into the forefront. I'm not talking about just going to church and all this stuff. I'm
Mm-mm.
talking about actually taking it and applying it,
Right.
because it's like someone could read a whole cookbook to me, but if I ain't actually doing what the cookbook's saying, what am I
Right.
really doing here?
Right.
It's the
Right.
same thing. The Bible is the blueprint. I had to learn it the hard way.
Hearing what you're saying, what you just said about going through things and realizing that it is the enemy trying to attack you and get you or what have you, but realizing that it's a spiritual warfare that's going on. And the only way to get through that is to sit there and you got to armor up. You got to suit yourself. You got to be suited and booted with the armor of God, you know? So as you're entering into that battle, because you can't battle that just with your flesh. You know, I am, oh my goodness. I'm like, whoa, you know, to hear it from someone as young as you at 23.
And negative seeds too. We just can't say like it's our parents' fault. We have to acknowledge the negative seeds and make a choice.
Thank you.
Sometimes those things can actually help you to become a better person, because even though I have self-awareness, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect.
Yeah.
So just like my parents wasn't perfect, that doesn't make them bad parents. I definitely wouldn't say they were bad parents.
Right.
You know, I decided to make a choice to say, okay, how you're doing that is not working for you. So I'm not going to do that because it's probably not going to work for me.
Right. I love that. And I love the way that you said that, as far as like, it is learned behavior, whether or not you go towards it or run from it. Right. In the last episode where I was joined by the two parents, the two mothers, Kelly and LaToya, one talked about being in a situation where they some negativity, and they decided and that they were going towards that, and noticed that as they became a mom and was doing things or whatever. And then another person, the other mother, was talking about how they were in a negative environment, and instead of going towards it, said, no, I want something different. When I become a mom, I'm gonna do something different or whatever. I mean, both realizing that you know, even later in life. But yeah, and then also I love the way that you said that it's still a choice that you make, regardless of what you go through. Because what I don't I tell you, not just parents, but people in general, adults, young adults, teenagers, whatever, you know, we all go through life, we make mistakes. You got to own up to it. Stop passing the buck. Stop holding on to whatever happened to you many moons ago or what have you, last year, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, you know, half an hour ago, whatever, as a crutch for you to sit there and maneuver through and treat somebody a certain way, or act a certain way, or say something or what have you, or go about the way that you maneuver through life because you feel that you had that right to do so, because you went through X, Y, and Z, because you experienced X, Y, and Z. And that's the reason why it made me X, Y, and Z. You know, but actually realizing, no, it's a choice that you make. Yeah, I could say, as you're like a child, a baby, those formative years where you're like a little child, a toddler, infants, things of that nature. And you still definitely need your parents or whoever it is. Maybe you're not with your parents, or, you know, whoever it is, the elders that are helping to guide you to keep you on that path. But once you become a certain age and you know right from wrong, and I've always said, as been a teenager, you can't continue to hold on to that as a crutch, because you make that choice. Just like how you said, you make that choice. You know what I mean? And some people don't realize that right away. Some people never realize it. But there does come a point in everyone's life where you do come to that head. You got to come to that head and you make that choice and realize that, no, I'm either going to do what I know is right, or do something different because I want something different or whatever, or I'm going to sit there and continue to hold on to this as a crutch and deal with it the way that I have been dealing, and things are just going to be the way that they are.
I think that goes into a lot of people in the Black community not understanding that mental health is key. And just because, you know, you want to stand on what you say, and you want to make sure that people don't mess with you, allow God to handle that, right? So anytime I feel like I'm not going to be the most respectful in a situation, I'll ask God to only allow the words to come out of my mouth that will bring light to the situation. Keyword light, or life, you know, because that right there, allows me to go into my heart and really realize outside of the emotion what is actually necessary. And
Mhm.
that's another key quality I got from my dad's side.
Mm,
Even
mhm.
though they don't really talk too much about how they might feel,
Right.
uh, if they do, it's not all the extra noise. It's what the issue is, and
The point.
that's it.
Mm,
It's
okay.
not. It's no room to be going. Even though some of them can't go back and forth,
Right.
it's just not something that is a norm for them.
Gotcha.
Everyone has all kinds of tendencies, but
Right.
some people are more dominant in certain things than other as far as personality wise.
Mhm.
Um, so that goes on to being really, really humbled. These past few months, I would say it's been about 5 months since my self-love journey.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm so happy to hear that, Ryan. I really am. I'm to continue on your love journey. You mentioned 5, 6 months, continue that on. It's once you get to that moment where you love yourself truly, fully, it's
Yeah.
hard to sit there and let someone take that from you again. You know what I mean? And it'll help guide you down the right path, not just for yourself but for others. And I love the fact that you're staying strong with the whole and bringing the fact that you are mentally aware, like you're emotionally aware, the emotional awareness and the mental health, bringing that to the forefront and keeping that in at the forefront, along with, again, definitely God and the connection and looking for him to guide you every step of the way, knowing the battles that come up. Some may be, things that are in that spiritual realm where it has to be in that spiritual warfare, and others where, you just asking for him to give you those necessary tools to get you through whatever that situation is right there. Knowing about accountability, knowing about being reliable, knowing about responsibilities, um, all of that. I mean, I'm sitting back in awe right now. I mean, I'm hearing from you, I'm learning from you even as I continue to grow myself, I am just so grateful for you to join me in this space to share to share a little bit about your perspective, give us your perspectives on some of those growing pains, how the seeds that were planted by your parents, whether they were good or bad, negative or positive, how you have cultivated those and how that is translated to you as you go into and enter into the adult world and go on through life. Like it has been it's been inspiring. I tell you, it's been inspiring to me. Thank you so much, fans. Hopefully you learned as much as as much as I did in this space from our young adult here. Can you believe this? So knowledgeable, so much wisdom. Like I'm impressed. I don't know about you, but I am. But thank you so much, fam, for watching us today. Hopefully you learned from us. And until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Peace and love. G.
Bye.
Texture, won't settle for less. Betcha that you won't forget. Text us, don't call our phone, help us.